The alien princess had always looked at humans with distant curiosity. From her world in the stars, they seemed small, fragile, and chaotic. Their ships were loud, their cities bright, and their emotions strange. She had studied them from orbit, trying to understand how such a primitive species could spread across so many worlds so quickly. They were everywhere, mining asteroids, colonizing moons, building homes on planets that once belonged only to her people. It fascinated and frightened her. Her name was Sarai, daughter of Queen Aretha of the Lyrians, a race known for logic, control, and slow, deliberate growth. Lyrians lived for centuries, and reproduction among them was rare, carefully chosen, almost sacred. But the humans, they reproduced endlessly. Their families grew in clusters, their children filled the stars. It was said that in only 2 centuries the humans had more colonies than any other species. Sarai had once whispered to her mother that maybe humans were dangerous. The queen had only smiled and said, "Dangerous? Yes, but full of life." That was before the war. Now, years later, Sarai found herself stranded on a small human colony world after her diplomatic ship was shot down. The night was cold. The sky burned orange with debris. She stumbled through the forest, wounded, her silver-blue skin reflecting faint light from the fires above. Her long white hair clung to her back as she searched for shelter. Every sound made her heart race. The air here was dense, heavy, full of the strange scent of soil and smoke. She didn't expect to find a human settlement, but she did. Through the trees, she saw faint lights and heard voices. She crept closer, hiding behind a broken trunk. There were humans gathered around a small fire near metal shelters. They looked tired and dirty, but they were alive, laughing softly, passing food between them. One of them, a man in a worn jacket, looked up and noticed her silhouette. His eyes widened, but instead of fear, there was concern. He stood and took a cautious step forward. "Hey," he called gently. "Are you hurt?" Sarai hesitated. Her translator flickered on and she whispered, "Stay away." Her accent was soft, melodic, not like any human sound. The man raised his hands. "Easy, you look hurt." "I'm not going to harm you," she felt dizzy. Her wound burned along her side. She tried to keep walking, but her legs gave out. The human caught her before she hit the ground. His hands were rough, warm, completely different from the cool skin of her kind. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was his face, tired, scarred, but kind. When Sarai woke, she was inside a small metal structure. The human man was sitting nearby watching her. A dim heater glowed in the corner. Her wound was covered. She blinked in confusion. "You're safe," he said quietly. "Name's Ethan, you crash-landed out there. I patched you up best I could." She tried to sit up, but he shook his head. "Don't move too much. You lost a lot of blood. Why help me?" she asked. "I am not of your kind," Ethan gave a faint smile. "Because you needed help. Doesn't matter what kind you are," Sarai didn't understand. On her world, helping an enemy could mean exile or death. Yet here this human was, taking care of her, sharing his food, using his energy cells to keep the heater on. Days passed. She grew stronger, though her mind stayed full of questions. Ethan showed her the camp, a small human outpost with only a few survivors after the orbital battles. There were families there, children running between shelters, people fixing broken machines, cooking, building, laughing. It shocked her. She had been taught that humans were chaotic, dangerous, destructive. Yet here, in the ashes of war, they built warmth out of nothing. One night she asked Ethan, "Why do your people multiply so much? Why so many children when your worlds already struggle?" He looked at her for a moment, then smiled sadly. "Because we have to. Because we lose people too fast. Every time there's a war or a storm or famine, it takes someone away. But we keep going. We make more life. We start again. It's how we survive." His words stayed with her. The Lyrians would mourn one death for decades. Humans mourned, and then built again. Later that week, Sarai saw a small girl fall while carrying a bundle of metal rods. Ethan rushed to help her. The girl smiled through tears and hugged him. Sarai watched quietly. Something in her chest shifted. She had never seen such open affection among her people. Lyrians rarely touched, rarely laughed. They valued composure, but humans, they felt everything out loud. That night, Sarai walked outside alone. The stars above were sharp and cold, but below she saw the flicker of fires, the movement of children playing. A woman singing softly while cradling a baby. The sound reached Sarai's heart in a way no lecture ever had. For the first time, she didn't see chaos, she saw beauty. Every laugh, every tear, every small act of care was a thread holding humanity together. Days became weeks. Her ship's beacon was gone and no Lyrian rescue came. Ethan taught her human survival, how to start a fire, how to purify water, how to use simple tools. In return, she helped him repair damaged systems with her knowledge of alien technology. Slowly, she began to speak more. She even laughed once when Ethan told a story about his childhood on Earth, a story of how his mother raised 3 children alone during a flood. How did she manage? Sarai asked. She didn't stop, he said. Humans don't stop. That's our thing. Sarai found herself looking at him longer than she should. He was not beautiful in the Lyrian sense. His features were rough, his hands scarred, but there was strength in his eyes, a quiet resolve that drew her. He reminded her of something she couldn't name. One evening, a storm hit. Winds tore through the camp. A shelter collapsed. Sarai ran out with Ethan to help the others. She saw him shield a crying child with his own body, taking the brunt of falling debris. When the storm passed, everyone was safe except Ethan, who was bruised and bleeding. Sarai knelt beside him, trembling. Why would you do that? She whispered. You could have died. He smiled faintly, teeth red with blood. Because that's what we do. We protect our own. She felt tears burn her eyes in an emotion rare among her kind. She pressed her hands over his wound, using her healing implant to close it. Blue light shimmered faintly. You are reckless, she said softly. But you are alive. Ethan chuckled weakly. That's the human way. When he slept, she sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. She thought of all she had learned, how humans multiplied not from greed but from love, not from chaos but from hope. Every birth, every family, every act of kindness was their rebellion against despair. In the quiet hum of the heater, Sarai whispered, Now I understand. She didn't mean only their biology. She meant their spirit, the will to fill an empty universe with laughter, to turn pain into new beginnings. And as the night went on, she realized she was no longer only an observer from a cold and distant race. She was part of something alive, something human in its heart. The storm had passed, but its memory stayed in Sarai's mind. She kept seeing Ethan's face, his hands covering the child to shield her from the wind and debris. He had almost lost his life, yet he never complained. When she checked on him the next morning, he was already up, helping others repair their damaged homes. His movements were slow, his body still hurt, but his eyes were full of quiet determination. Sarai followed him silently, her silver hair tied back, her blue-tinted skin glimmering faintly in the daylight. People in the camp greeted her now, shyly at first, then more openly. They called her the Blue Lady. Children brought her pieces of food, curious about her strange eyes and soft voice. She had never known such warmth from strangers. That day, Ethan asked her to help rebuild one of the larger shelters. It was heavy work, cutting old metal, fixing broken beams, sealing cracks to keep out the cold. She worked beside him, her strength greater than human thanks to her alien physiology. He joked once, You're stronger than me, princess. And she blinked in surprise because she had never told him she was royalty. How did you know? She asked softly. He grinned. You act like someone used to giving orders, and you talk like every word must be perfect. Royal habit, I guess. She didn't deny it. For the first time, being a princess felt like something distant, almost meaningless here. Among humans, her title didn't matter. What mattered was effort, kindness, survival. At night, they sat near the fire again. Ethan roasted something that smelled strange to her, but delicious to the humans. He noticed her watching and said, It's fine if you don't eat this. You folks probably have your own food back home. She nodded slowly. We have nutrient spheres. No taste, no warmth, he laughed. You're missing out. Half of being human is eating things that make you happy. Even when you are hungry? She asked. Especially then, he said, smiling at the flames. Food brings people together. Family, friends, strangers, doesn't matter. We share. Sarai thought about that long after everyone slept. Her people saw eating as necessity. Humans saw it as love. Weeks went by. The signal beacon remained silent. No Lyrian fleet came. Sarai began to help the humans more, tending to children, fixing their small machines, teaching them how to purify water faster. In return, they showed her how to live like one of them. Simple, rough, alive. She found herself watching the children most of all. They were loud, playful, messy. They cried and laughed within moments, and each time they fell, someone lifted them up again. There was one small boy, maybe 6 years old, who had lost both parents. Ethan often kept him close, sharing his rations, teaching him small chores. "Why do you care for him?" Sarai asked one evening. Ethan looked at her with gentle eyes. "Because someone has to. He didn't choose to be alone." In those words, she heard something powerful: responsibility, compassion, things her people spoke about in theory but rarely practiced so openly. The boy followed her everywhere after that. He called her Sarah. At first she didn't like it. It was too informal for a princess. But slowly it began to feel warm. The sound of his small voice saying her name made her heart soften in ways she didn't understand. One afternoon the boy came running to her with a flower, bright yellow, fragile, with uneven petals. "For you," he said proudly. "Ethan said you like colors," she smiled. Days turned into weeks, and the human camp began to change. With Sarai's help, the damaged system slowly started working again. The energy collectors began to hum softly in the morning. Lights flickered inside shelters, and water purifiers began to run clean. Ethan always thanked her, though she often said it was nothing. But to the humans, it was everything. Children started running toward her whenever she walked through the camp. They liked her calm voice and glowing hair. One small boy called her Star Lady. She didn't understand it at first, but smiled anyway. These humans were not afraid of her anymore. They shared food, asked questions, and laughed around her. Every small act made her heart warmer. At night, she sometimes sat with Ethan near the fire. The stars above looked endless. He often pointed out constellations and told stories about Earth, how their ancestors used to look at the same stars and dream of flying among them. She listened quietly. Every story sounded simple yet full of heart. "Humans always look up," Ethan said once. "Even when everything down here falls apart, we keep looking up." Sarai looked at him, trying to understand that strange hope that lived in his eyes. Her people looked up too, but with calculation, to map stars, to find resources, to plan colonies. Humans looked up with wonder. That was the difference. One day, as Sarai checked the communication device she had been secretly rebuilding, she finally caught a faint Lyrian signal. Her chest tightened. A rescue team was passing near this sector. She could send a pulse, and within hours they would find her. She stared at the small blinking light, her hand hovering over the switch. Then she looked outside, at Ethan, who was teaching 2 children how to fix a broken rover, and at the tired woman cooking food for the camp. She thought of how these people had saved her when they had almost nothing themselves. A signal to her fleet might bring help for her, but danger for them. The Lyrians still saw humans as lower beings, unfit to share their world. Sarai turned off the beacon. She told herself it was only temporary. She needed more time to think. But deep inside, she knew she was not ready to leave. As days passed, Ethan began to notice something strange in her behavior. She often walked alone, standing near the edge of the forest, staring at the horizon for long minutes. Her face looked thoughtful, even sad. One evening he asked softly, "You got somewhere else to go, Star Lady?" She blinked. "I could. My people may come for me soon." He nodded slowly. "That's good news, right?" "I am not sure." Ethan looked at her for a while. "Because you think they won't like what you found here?" Sarai didn't answer. She just looked down, her long white hair falling forward. "They will not understand humans." "They never tried to." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe you can teach them." His words were simple, but they struck her heart. Could she really do that? Could she, one princess, change what her whole empire believed? She didn't know. But when she looked into his eyes, full of quiet belief, she wanted to try. A few days later, disaster struck again. The camp's power core began to fail. A leak in the containment system threatened to release radiation that could kill everyone. Sarai and Ethan rushed to the main generator chamber. The air crackled with blue sparks. "It's overheating," Ethan shouted over the noise. Sarai quickly examined the console. "If we cannot seal the leak, it will explode. Then we'll seal it." Ethan grabbed a tool and started climbing toward the valve, but she stopped him. "No. The radiation level is too high." "I don't care." "I do." Her voice was firm, her eyes sharp. "You have people who depend on you." He looked at her, realizing what she meant. Sarai, no, but she was already moving. With calm grace, she opened a panel and pulled a small silver core from her wrist. It glowed faintly, part of her royal armor's bioshield system. This can stabilize the leak, she said. But once I connect it, my body will weaken. Ethan's jaw tightened. There has to be another way. There isn't. She met his eyes, soft but steady. Humans protect their own. Now I protect mine. Before he could stop her, she climbed into the chamber, the bright blue light wrapping around her. She pressed the core into the open vent. The machine roared, sparks flying, and a rush of energy surged through the room. For a moment, it felt like the whole world paused. Then the light dimmed and the system stabilized. The camp's power returned, lights flickering back to life. When Ethan reached her, she was lying on the floor, weak but breathing. Her blue skin looked pale. He lifted her carefully, whispering, "You did it. You saved them." Her voice was faint. "Now, I understand why humans never stop." He carried her outside. People cheered when they saw the lights return, but they fell silent seeing Sarai in his arms. Children ran forward. One little girl touched Sarai's hand and whispered, "Star Lady saved us." Ethan looked at the princess, who gave a tired smile. "She sure did," he said. That night, Ethan stayed by her side while she rested. Her body was weak without her energy core, but her spirit was stronger than ever. When she woke, he was still there, half asleep against the wall. "You stayed," she said quietly. "Wouldn't go anywhere," he replied with a tired grin. "You're kind. You never give up," he shrugged. "Neither do you, apparently." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said softly, "If my people come, they may not understand. They may see this place as a threat. If that happens..." "Will you run?" Ethan shook his head. "We don't run from family." Her lips trembled slightly. "Family?" He smiled gently. "You're one of us now, aren't you?" The words struck deep. For the first time, she felt not like a visitor or a royal outsider, but part of something living and real. The next morning, Sarai woke to the sound of engines in the distance, deep, smooth, and unmistakably Lyrian. Her people had arrived. She stood outside, watching the sleek silver ships descend from the clouds. The humans stared, uneasy. Ethan came to her side. "Guess that's your ride." "Yes," she said quietly. A group of Lyrian soldiers stepped out, tall and proud in their gleaming armor. Their leader bowed slightly. "Princess Sarai, we feared you lost. We are here to return you home." Sarai glanced at Ethan, then back at her people. "These humans saved me." The commander's expression did not change. "They are primitive, Your Grace. They must not be involved further." "Without them," she said firmly, "I would not be alive." Ethan stepped forward. "We didn't do it for thanks." The commander looked at him as if studying an insect. "And yet you seek acknowledgement." Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but Sarai stopped him with a raised hand. Her voice was calm but strong. "No, Commander. He seeks nothing. That is what makes him human." There was silence. The commander seemed unsure how to respond. Sarai took one more look at the camp, the small shelters, the children, the people who had become her friends. Then she turned back to her people. "I will return with you," she said. "But I carry something new, understanding. The humans are not what we thought. They are life itself." As she walked toward the ship, Ethan called out, "You'll tell them about us?" She looked back, her eyes bright under the morning light. "I will tell them what I've seen. Hearts that burn brighter than any star." Then she stepped aboard the Lyrian vessel. Hours later, as the ship rose into the sky, she watched the human camp grow smaller below. A warmth filled her chest, not sadness, but connection. She finally understood what made humans multiply, what made them spread across the stars with endless courage. It wasn't just survival. It was love. A love for life itself, for each other, for hope. And for the first time, Princess Sarai of the Lyrians smiled with that same human hope. When the Lyrian ship carried Sarai away from the colony world, she sat by the viewing window, watching the planet grow smaller until it became only a blue dot. Her hands rested on her lap and her thoughts were not calm. Ethan's face kept appearing in her mind, the way he smiled, the way he never gave up, the way he said she was one of them. Inside the ship, the air smelled clean and cold, like metal and crystal. Her people spoke with formal voices, polite and distant. They didn't laugh. They didn't touch. It was the same culture she had grown up in, yet it suddenly felt too quiet, too lifeless. When they reached the royal cruiser, the news spread fast. The lost princess had been found. Queen Aretha met her daughter in the great hall, full of shimmering light. The queen's silver crown gleamed against her pale blue skin. She stepped forward, graceful and proud. "My daughter," the queen said softly. "You are safe. The stars have returned you to us," Sarai bowed. "Mother." But as the queen embraced her, Sarai's heart did not feel peace. She had waited years for this moment, but something was missing, something alive and real. The hug felt like a ceremony, not warmth. That night, the queen ordered a formal report. In the council chamber, Sarai stood before tall Lyrian lords with glowing robes and emotionless eyes. She told them how her ship had fallen, how she had been rescued by humans, and how they had survived together. When she spoke of the camp, the laughter, the children, the courage, the council murmured in disbelief. One lord said coldly, "You describe these humans with too much affection. They are unpredictable, reckless, and their population grows without wisdom." Sarai lifted her chin. "Perhaps wisdom is not only control, perhaps it is the will to live even when everything breaks." The room went silent. The council looked uneasy. Queen Aratha leaned forward slowly. "You speak like one of them, my daughter." "Maybe I learned something from them," Sarai replied. After the meeting, the queen summoned her alone. The hall was quiet. The queen stood near a tall crystal window, looking out into the black sea of stars. "Sarai, you are heir to 1,000 years of peace. Humans are chaos. You must not let their disorder infect your mind." Sarai's voice was soft but firm. "It is not disorder, mother, it is life. They build, they care, they start again even when they lose everything. They don't fear failure." The queen turned, her eyes sharp. "You sound changed." "I am." The queen studied her for a long moment. Then she said, "Perhaps it is time you see what the council plans for them." In the following days, Sarai discovered that the Lyrian Empire was planning a new order to restrict human expansion near Lyrian borders. Some even suggested removing the nearby colonies by force. Sarai felt cold inside. The thought of ships burning the same small camp where Ethan lived made her chest ache. That night she couldn't sleep. She walked to the communication deck and looked at the stars. She knew the coordinates of the human colony by heart. She whispered to herself, "They saved me. Now I must save them." She opened a private channel and sent a secret message, a warning to Ethan. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Ethan, if this reaches you, my people are coming. They will not see your camp as peace. Hide, stay safe. Do not fight them." Then she ended the transmission before the guards could trace it. A week later, the royal fleet left for inspection. Sarai joined her mother's flagship. From the bridge, she saw the vast formation of ships slide through the stars like silver shadows. Her heart beat faster when the human colony's world appeared ahead. "Prepare the inspection team," the queen ordered. Sarai stood still. "Mother, please, they mean no harm." "This is protection, not war," said the queen. "We must control them before they grow beyond balance." Sarai's hands tightened. "Balance is not control." The queen ignored her. The ships descended through the clouds. On the ground, Ethan and the others watched the sky burn silver. Alarms blared. Children ran to the shelters. Ethan grabbed a radio, trying to reach whoever was in command. "This is the human camp of Epsilon 7. We have civilians here." "We mean no threat," the radio only hissed back. Then a familiar voice broke through. Soft, calm, unmistakable. "Ethan, it's me." He froze. "Sarai, listen to me. Don't run. Don't attack. Just stay calm. I'll stop them." "Stop them?" "You're with them." "I have to try." In orbit, Sarai stepped forward as the queen gave the command to send scout drones. "Mother, please," she said again. "If we attack, we become the thing we fear." "This is not an attack. It will be." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Stand down, Sarai." But Sarai didn't. She walked to the main console and, before anyone could stop her, activated the communication array to broadcast her voice across all Lyrian channels. "This is Princess Sarai of the Lyrian Empire. I declare the humans of Epsilon 7 under royal protection." Gasps filled the bridge. Officers stared in shock. The queen rose, furious. "You have no authority." "I do," Sarai said, her voice strong now. "Because I saw what they are. I saw kindness when there was nothing left. I saw them protect strangers. I saw them live without fear. They are not chaos, they are courage. The Queen's hand trembled slightly. You risk everything for them. For truth, Sarai whispered. If the Lyrian Empire destroys life to keep its order, then it has no wisdom at all. The silence that followed was heavy. No one moved. Then slowly the Queen turned away from the window. Cancel the operation, she said quietly. The officers hesitated, but one by one they obeyed. The drones pulled back. The ships turned in the sky. Sarai let out a long breath. Her knees felt weak, but her heart was steady. The humans below would see the ships leaving, and they would live. That was enough. Later, in her private chamber, the Queen called her again. This time her voice was softer. You love them, don't you? Sarai hesitated. I love what they are. They remind me of what we lost, the fire to care without reason. The Queen looked at her daughter for a long moment, then smiled faintly for the first time. Perhaps the universe needed them, and perhaps it needs you to remind us. When the fleet left orbit, Sarai returned to the window. Through the glass, she saw the planet below, small and full of life. She knew she might never see Ethan again, but she also knew something bound them beyond distance. Back on the colony, days later, Ethan stood on a ridge, looking at the sky where the ships had vanished. The radio crackled once, and Sarai's voice came faintly through the static. They are gone. You're safe. Keep building, Ethan. Keep living. Multiply with hope, he smiled quietly. We always do, Star Lady. In the royal records. Sarai's message to the humans was never officially logged. But legends began to spread among both races. Of a Lyrian princess who defied her empire for a small group of humans, who saw beauty where others saw chaos. Years passed. The humans expanded peacefully. Some Lyrian scientists began to visit human worlds, curious now instead of fearful. And in every classroom, every colony, stories of the Star Lady were told, a princess who had learned the human heart. Sarai continued her work as ambassador, traveling between species, teaching peace instead of control. She often looked to the stars and whispered to herself, remembering Ethan's voice, his words about hope and life. Humans kept multiplying, but now not only by number, by kindness, by courage, by connection. The Lyrians began to change too, little by little, and somewhere, deep in the vast sky, Sarai smiled again, knowing she had finally understood why humans multiply. Not because they fear death, but because they choose life again and again. It was their greatest power, and now it lived inside her too.